Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Malika, and I am glad to be back with you on this Transformation Tuesday. I did miss everyone last week, but we are rebooting and introducing some new things, and so that was the time that we took last week to get those things prepared for you to roll them out for this week. So you will be hearing some exciting announcements in regards to the new network that I have created. It does have its own Facebook group, and it will be rolling out right after this Transformation Tuesday. You will see another video coming out explaining to you what that is, and so I'm very excited to share that with you. We're going to go ahead and to get into this week's lesson. We're still talking about emotional resilience and talking about basically living our best and most healthy life emotionally. And something that I wanted to talk to you guys about that is in the book that I am currently editing, that will be scheduled to release in December, Letters to a Bitter Sister. And so hopefully you guys will be on the newsletter list so that you can get the information on how to purchase that. I really want to share that with you. It is an extension beyond the ebook that we released on Beginning Again, where this goes much further into detail, and it is a way to look at just some of the things that happen to us and how we emotionally respond and develop because of those things. And so I'm really excited to share that with you. So look forward to that in the near future. So we are going to continue with what we have been working on. We've been talking about the emotional resilience. We've talked about defining exactly what it is and about telling the truth. And we have learned that when you tell the truth, that your life will heal itself. That does not mean that bad things will not happen, but what it does mean is that if you're honest, you can deal with things in an honest place, and that allows you to eventually get over those things or heal from those things. It's challenging to say get over because there may be some things that you will never necessarily get over, but you will be able to heal from them to where they will not impact you. It will not be an open wound as it was when it first occurred. Then we started talking about emotional debt, and we were on that for a couple of weeks, and there was a lot of things there with emotional debt. I think a lot of us can say that we're in that place where we deal with emotional debt and we have those deficits, and we've allowed people to basically dig out of us emotionally and leave these holes, and we have to learn how to repair those and fill those holes back in order to be a whole person. And then after that, we started to talk about just emotional triggers and the things that happen that will bring up emotional things in our life and emotional responses that we may not necessarily even realize are there. So that was what we talked about after that. This week, I want to talk about bitterness. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I think it's important. A lot of times we walk around bitter for a variety of reasons. And even if there's a legitimate reason for us being bitter, if something bad happened to us or someone did something to us that was very horrific and we're bitter about it, it does not mean that the bitterness is okay. Because what happens with bitterness is we act from a place, and our behavior is very much not healthy, and we operate in a way that is not allowing us to deal with the situation, which is being honest. It's not allowing us to process what that situation has done for us emotionally, psychologically, albeit it may be a physical ramification for the situation as well. It doesn't allow us to deal with that. And it's really important for us to understand when we are in a place of bitterness. Bitterness will eat you alive. And so we will be bitter thinking that having this anger and having this bitterness will make the other person suffer. And they're living their life. They have no idea what's going on with us. They've moved on. They're probably not thinking about the situation that very much has become the center of our lives. And what the bitterness does is it slowly eats away at us. It can impact our relationships. It can impact even our health if we don't deal with it. And it can stop us from becoming or moving and continuing to develop into healthy emotional people. And God forbid you behave in a way that is unseeming, and then that can cause other situations. And so that's the reason why I wanted to talk about bitterness, because I think it's important. I want to give a little bit more of my own personal story. I've talked about, my divorce, my first marriage. I've talked about those situations. And in the book, I cover this in a little bit more detail. But the reality is I was bitter about the situation. I was bitter about things that happened. And I carried that into every interaction I had with people, even just regular friendships, relationships that were not even romantic. I carried that bitter pill or that it was just like bitterness in my blood. I just carried that with me, and it impacted how I behaved and how I dealt with people, to the point where I was angry. My temper, like immediately I would fly off the handle for the littlest things. I had issues with trusting people. If you lied to me, that was it. You weren't getting any more chances. It had gotten to a point where it very much was controlling me and controlling my life. Not a productive place to be. Not a place to be if you are planning on improving yourself and being a better version of yourself. And God forbid you have children that you're caring for. How can you really be the most effective parent if you're carrying on that kind of bitterness? And so that's the place I found myself in. And regardless of if I felt I was justified to feel the way I did, it was not a productive place. My challenge was I didn't have anybody to help me deal with that. And so my story was that a lot of times, because I was raised in the church, we're always taught to pray. We're never necessarily taught to sit down and talk about the situations that we're going through. And so that's one of the challenges that I had. I was bottling up all these emotions inside and keeping these things to myself, which was not a healthy and productive place to be. And then the problem with that is it continues to layer. The problem with that is I'm holding this stuff in and the layers start to build, and at some point you're going to explode. And that was just what my everyday reaction was. It was waiting for that explosion to occur, whether it be someone said something that made me upset and they got unloaded on because that was what I was holding on to, or whether it be, just being a little bit more boisterous or yelling at my kids, whatever it was, that was a bitterness that I was holding on to. And these were things that I did not have a place to release and talk about, be honest with what was happening and deal with. And so you find yourself in a place of bitterness, and that's not a great place to be. So there's a couple of things that I want to give as a few tips to talk about when it comes to bitterness. The first thing is be honest. Yes, there could be a situation where someone has done something to you and you did not deserve what was done to you. But a lot of times there are situations, especially when we're talking about relationships, where you're interacting with a person and you have actions, they have actions. There's decisions that are being made on both parts. And so you have to take responsibility for your part in the situation. In order to do that, you have to be honest about what happened. And you also must make sure that you're taking accountability for your actions. What could you have done differently? Is there something that you could have done differently that have possibly changed the outcome? That is where the honesty part comes into it. That's the foundation of this, because if you're not honest, then you're being a victim, right? And being a victim is going to continue to allow you to be bitter and to stew in that bitterness that's inside of you. So you're going to have to be honest and look at the situation and say, maybe I made a bad decision in the first place. Maybe I should not have even been in a relationship with this person to begin with. That was where I found myself personally. I realized that the relationship really should have never happened. And that was the case. But it took me some time to get to a place to be honest like that. And a lot of times we're not honest. And so you have to be honest. Tell the truth. Do not rewrite history and try to say it was this and it was that. Let's be honest in the decision making. There are times when we make poor choices in the people that we get into relationships with. And we have to think about the fact that that poor choice allowed us to be in a situation where that person could have done something to us. So you're going to have to be honest. The next thing is, and it's kind of tagged on to being honest, is taking accountability. Taking accountability means you need to own it. All of it, not just the good stuff you did that was met with bad stuff. You need to also own the bad stuff you did and the stuff that you're not, so proud of, the things that you don't want people to know. You need to own those things too. And the accountability will allow you to evaluate your actions. It will allow you to evaluate your emotions, your responses, and the different things related to the relationship or the situation or whatever it is, and allow you to look at ways where you can improve. The improvement means that going forward, I don't want to do these things again. I'll give you the example of when people go to AA or they go to Narcotics Anonymous or any kind of self-help group where they have some type of addiction, Gamblers Anonymous. The first thing they have to do is admit that there was a problem, right? So admitting the problem is being honest and telling the truth. The next part of that is dealing with what role did you play in getting yourself to that particular place. So what exactly was the underlying situation? What was the emotional feelings that you weren't dealing with that allowed you to get to the place to where you could behave that way or get into a situation or relationship with the person that allowed this particular thing to occur? You're going to have to take accountability. You're going to have to say, I should have never even been in the relationship, or I should have followed my first mind and walked away from the situation when I saw that it was getting at hand. But no, I stood there and I stayed. There's a lot of different things that you can say, okay, I need to make a better choice. And in that, taking accountability, that puts you on a place to now deal with what the real is. So after you have been honest and after you have taken accountability, the next thing you want to do is start laying out the things that you want to change. What is the roadmap of things that you want to change? What are the behaviors that you see that if I change these behaviors, I should get a different response? Because you do not want to continue to do the same things and expect that you're going to get the same responses. You don't want to do that. So now you're laying out a roadmap. You're saying, okay, I need to make better choices in the people that I choose to have relationships with, whether they be romantic or friendships. And this is a hard thing. And I think a lot of people think this is just related to friends. You even have to look at relationships with your family members. And reality is that sometimes every family member is probably not the most productive person to have around. So you're going to have to lay out a roadmap of things that you want to change, and one by one, work on those things. It may take you months to work on one item on the list. That's okay. It may take you years to work on one item on the list. Don't give it a timeline of I should be able to fix this thing in X amount of time. That's not how this works. You need to take the time it's necessary in order to work through that particular issue or change that particular thing. And that will allow you the opportunity to move systematically through the things on your list and do it in a healthy way. Don't push yourself beyond your limit. There are some things that you're not ready to do right now that you may be ready to do in 6 months, that you may be ready to do in a year. But be realistic about the goal setting and also take time and have patience. Don't put a clock on the change. We're running out of time, and I want to continue talking about this because I think it's important. From a female perspective, I know a lot of times we get into bad relationships and we end up bitter, and then we have another relationship and that relationship ends up badly, and we're bitter at the other person and we're in a victim mode, and we never stop to take accountability for, well, what was my role in getting to this place? And so that's the reason why I want to deal with this. And it's not just speaking just to women and singling women out. I think this applies to men as well. It just looks and manifests differently for men and women. But a lot of times women will find themselves in victim mode. And that's the thing that I want us to get out of. We're not victims. Things happen. Your response to what happens is what makes you who you're going to be, makes you a better person. It teaches you life lessons, because your life lessons are learned in the bad times as opposed to the good times. So that's it for our time this week. It always goes so quickly. Remember, you can always keep in contact with me through my website, MalikaMBrown.com, and it's spelled MALAIKA mbrown.com. Or you can visit me on Facebook at Dr. Malika Speaks, Instagram, Dr. Malika Speaks, and on Twitter at Dr. Malika Speaks. And if you want to check out my YouTube channel, it is Transformation TV with Dr. Malika, and you can see all the videos, the Transformation Tuesdays, and any other videos of events that I have done are loaded to the YouTube page. So until next week, I look forward to speaking with you, and I hope something that was said hits you in a place that will push you to change, because my goal is to be the catalyst to help you transform. Until next week, bye-bye.